What is up, Steeler Nation? We are back with another great episode of the sickest Steeler podcast in the land, Steeler Crazy. I am Jay York Football. That's Mic'd Up Sports One. How are you today?
I'm great. Good to see you. Excited, obviously, about the fact that we have some amazing guests coming on. We never like to reveal our secrets over here to our following. We want to keep you guys in the dark, like Aaron Rodgers on his darkness retreat. But you and I haven't done a show together in a minute, so I'm excited to just hang out with you. A lot of people forget about us sometimes because we bring on these great guests, but it's you and I today, man.
Yeah, but we have a lot of stuff to review, and I think some topics that we're going to touch on, I think that, our viewership will really enjoy. So, Shane, let's take it to the field.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Harris Smith shields. Flacco Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Take it to the field. Take it to the house. I like that. That's a new one for me. Let's take it to the field.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to switch it up. We got our guy Shane in the command board, and Sammy and Anella enjoying Disney World. So, we're here. So I kind of wanted to jump right into it because I think that this is going to, turn a lot of eyes is because, people, well, we are the Steelers Crazy podcast, but people might think of us as crazy after we give our takes on this. But let's break it down. Mason Rudolph versus Mitch Trubisky for QB2. Now, a lot of you would say, how is Mason Rudolph still even on this team? What I will say is that why wouldn't he be on a team? He's a guy that's been here. He knows the playbook. He's been around the coaches. I mean, he's been a Steeler his whole career. It just made sense, with Kenny's concussions and, injuries in the NFL, they happen. You can't really plan for them. So it's good to have a backup plan. And you never know how things can turn. We've seen it with Duck Hodges, our guy, a few seasons ago. So more than a few seasons ago, but memories that will live in our heart forever. But basically what I'm getting at before I throw it over to you to get the, can Mason make a run for QB2 is that I think to sum it up in a short sense is why not? I think that Mitch Trubisky should be like, I'm the starter. Not in a way that he has malice towards these guys, in a way that Mike, I text you at 2:30 a.m. when I'm getting ready for the gym. I'm trying to bring out the best in you. You give people tough love. You're always pushing them to the next level, and I think that that's what that QB room can be. I'm sure Mason Rudolph. He's in black and gold. I'm rooting for him. So I'm going to be at training camp, and I really can't wait to see. I just think that this is, I say this so much, but it's just a new era of Steeler football. And I think that the future is unknown. And I think that's what keeps us coming back.
Yeah, that's why I keep my notifications on silent, by the way. Anybody that doesn't believe Jordan when he's texting at 2:30 a.m., it's the truth. And he's not going to sleep, up late night texting. He's waking up in the morning. Sometimes I'm going to sleep at that time. So it's certainly a different sleep schedule. He's been up the entire day, and I just woke up 10 minutes ago. But yeah, man, obviously we're talking a little bit about Mason versus Mitch. Not a ton of storylines out there right now, but this is something that had me thinking last week. And your take is completely accurate. Everyone, no matter what position or sport or whatever they do in life, podcast host, janitor, journalist, should want to be the best at their job, obviously, right? And, nobody's doubting the confidence level of somebody like Mason Rudolph or Mitch Trubisky. That's his standpoint on it. I'm wondering about the Steelers' standpoint on that backup quarterback spot. I'm wondering because last year, heading into the preseason, they were very open about the fact that it was a three-man race for the starting quarterback position between Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky. Now, listen, at the end of the day, we knew it probably wasn't going to be Pickett because he's a rookie and they like to bring these guys along slowly. But we definitely thought there was an open competition between Mitch and Mason. And I thought Mason had a good preseason. Mitch was good too. Mason's playing with the third stringers, obviously, which makes a pretty big difference. But, I don't know if you necessarily bring a guy like Mason Rudolph back unless you're going to tell him, hey, once more, dude, you're in a competition for the number 2 spot, just like you were in a competition for the number 1 spot last year. And it is a hot take. You're right. But I personally don't think we should count him out of that spot. And that's based on Mitch Trubisky's play last season, right? I tweeted this the other day, and people said, well, he beat the Bengals week 1. Okay, did he they forced 58 turnovers. You and I were watching that game at our buddy's house. I don't know if that was so much Mitch other than the Bengals shooting himself in the damn foot. He beat the Panthers. Cool. I could have beat the Panthers last year, Sam Darnold. He threw 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, had an 80 quarterback rating, and lost the Ravens game at home when Kenny Pickett got injured, that they should have won, that they might have been in the playoffs. If Mitch wins that game, he was terrible in that game. So considering all of those factors, why does he just walk into that number 2 spot to start the season? I want to know at least there's a healthy quarterback competition this preseason. I think the Steelers are going to at least say that on record. And then if Mason outperforms Mitch, which I think is also possible, he should get that number 2 spot. How can we disagree with that?
I mean, I don't think you can. And, we're not going to be us. We're going to be on the, couch watching TV. It's up to Tomlin, the guys in the room to really, come to that conclusion on who they think it could be. But I think that it adds, there's a lot of storyline, obviously, in the preseason just with the rookie. But I think that there's always like storylines that are already like blossoming. And I think that, maybe on the Sick podcast, they heard it and, everyone's like, maybe not so crazy.
No, think about how many seasons we've seen in the past as Steelers fans where backup quarterbacks have been forced to play and third string quarterbacks have been forced.
I mean, not
play.
even just in with the Steelers.
Everywhere.
It's in the
Everywhere.
NFL. I mean, look at here's a perfect Brock Purdy.
Yep. 49ers now have 4 quarterbacks. But the
now
Steelers are a perfect example. I mean, last year, obviously, you had Mitch starting games. Somebody is going to start games this year other than Kenny Pickett. I promise you that.
Yeah.
I would put that in blood right now. Somebody's going to start games, right? He's going to tweak an ankle at some point, and they're going to hold him out for a week. Or somebody's going to come in at halftime because, unfortunately, maybe he takes a hard hit to the head at some point and is a little dizzy.
It is football.
Dude, look at 2 years ago with Ben. Mason Rudolph ends up starting some games because Ben gets COVID. Josh Dobbs starts a game. It's your third string. You mentioned a handful of years ago, Duck Hodges. He started the season as the 4th string quarterback on the Steelers and ended up starting games over Mason
Gonzalez. Pete Gonzalez.
We're going back.
We're going back out far.
A little bit, but
it's true.
It's worth talking about. I tell you that. Like, people are going to tune into this and like, these guys are talking about the backup quarterbacks. Like, who cares? Bring up, let's talk about Pickens.
Sometimes if you have a guy, I feel that the backup quarterback position in the NFL is so important because you have a guy that has to be willing to go in there cold feet and produce. Your job, I don't even want to say as a backup quarterback, your job isn't to win the game. I feel that your job is simply not to lose the game. And the Steelers have a good enough defense where if you go out there, you throw a touchdown, hand off the ball, open up the passing game a little bit and don't turn the ball over. That's all you can ask from a backup quarterback.
And that's not what Mitch Trubisky did last year. He threw it right into the hands of Patrick Queen multiple times in that Ravens-Steelers game. I'm not absolving Mason Rudolph. He's done that too. Trust me. I think the point, though, is that I want to see a competition between these guys, a fair competition, because I don't think Mason got a fair shake last year, man.
Yeah. All right, so let's kind of do a show review. We had a lot of great guests on recently, and, we're very fortunate, most importantly, to all the Yinzers that tune into us. I know that we have not just Yinzers in Pittsburgh, Yinzers everywhere. So, again, make sure you subscribe, follow us on wherever you listen to the podcast, whatever clips we're constantly producing content and putting it out for the masses. So our most recent guy we talked to, again, I was like ready to cry after that interview with Zach Banner, 72, could be eligible for a return. Even if it's not in the black of gold, it was kind of good to hear because, I listened to a lot of interviews after he left, the Steelers, and that one was just like, man, I mean, it was just like very heartfelt because I think that he said, 2023 is his year. So this is his, he's ready to get back to it. Injuries, no one can relate to that. You can sit back here and say, his future, his career as the Steelers didn't really pan out. But at the end of the day, these guys are giving it their all and they know what they're doing. And like he said, he doesn't give a shit and he loves Pittsburgh. So that's what I grasp. He doesn't give a shit and he loves Pittsburgh. And I would be happy if Zach Banner came back. So that was cool.
An easy guy to root for at the end of the day. He gave some incredibly thoughtful answers about his time with Mike Tomlin, about his relationship with Ben Roethlisberger, and about how grueling and challenging it was to overcome a week 1 injury when you're the starting right tackle of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He finally gets entrenched in that spot and he goes down, tears his ACL. He hasn't been the same since. It's just the fact of the matter. So we don't want to ruin too much of the interview, or not ruin, but spoil, I guess, too many things, because ultimately part of this podcast is, if you're listening for, the first time or you haven't caught up in an episode in a while, it's for you to go back and check out some of these interviews. So we'll keep rattling them off, Jordan. But I'm with you, Zach Banner, man. I pulled out my terrible towel and I was wanting to cry in my towel.
Yeah, good. Another guy, Tyson, we had on, again, older vet, but just has been. He kind of reminds me of Cam Hayward in a way, because it's just these guys are just workhorses and still producing in the later years in their careers. So it was just really, just like our guy Worm, man, we're always rooting for these guys no matter where they go. So
yeah, my biggest takeaway from the Tyson Alualu interview that we did was that he still wants to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think you could, that could be said about a lot of guys.
Think everyone does. Zach Banner misses Pittsburgh. Tyson wants to come.
But let's talk reality. Like, in terms of reality, Zach Banner isn't coming back to the Steelers. Like, Zach Banner is not going to be back. I'll eat my words, and I hope Zach's not watching this if that's the case. But most viewers out there are pretty positive that relationship is severed. Not in a bad way. It just seems like, with the way the Steelers address the offensive line this year, the way Zach is still kind of recovering, that it would have to – something would have to come together that we could not foresee. But with Tyson Alualu, he still lives in Pittsburgh. He was on the roster last season, right? He was another guy who was banged up. He did get demoted, benched because of some poor play. But at the end of the day, he's somebody that you could still bring in as a depth piece, who knows the system, who played extremely well a few years back for this team. So he wants to keep playing. He still lives in Pittsburgh. The Steelers' defensive line, at the end of the day, have had injuries in the past. We talked about a guy like Chris Wormley. Who knows about Montravius Adams ultimately, what's going on with him. So I could see him making a return. I think that was my biggest takeaway.
For sure. Nick Herbig. So what I took away from that is, being like a, underdog and smaller guy myself, really was just like, I was ready to run through a wall after we did that interview, because he kind of, in a way, and shout out to our guy, Robert Spillane, who just got married. I seen this past weekend. I know he's with the Raiders now. Wish him the best of luck. But that's who he kind of reminds me of. I
like that. Hard-nosed, for sure. Just a guy who's going to put football first at the end of the day. One of my biggest takeaways, he's freaking hilarious, man. We played a game on that show called Nate or Nick, where we asked Nick about some superlatives and if he thought his brother was better at it or he was better at it, like who's the better dancer, who's the better shit talker, who's the better singer, whatever the hell it may be. And he was hilarious, man. We got to learn a lot about his brother, even though his brother wasn't even on the show. And you're right, this guy was so pumped to be a Steeler. You saw the video when he got drafted. He was like crying, puts his hand down when he gets the call from the coaches. You could just sense that he was absolutely, just taken aback and overwhelmed by the moment in a good way, because he's so passionate about football.
Yeah. Again, all good stuff. Another guy that I really, enjoyed talking with, worked for Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Ray Fittipaldo. He's just been around the Steelers forever, and that was right around the time where the Chase Young rumors were coming. So he kind of put a shut down to that, and just kind of to get his perspective, because he was at mini camp and been at the Steelers facilities, getting a firsthand look at some of these rookies and Kenny Pickett and all the guys. Just was really cool to just kind of knack his brain and get his thoughts on the current Steelers.
You said it, man. He's been an insider for a long time, so he's incredibly trustworthy. That's a guy that I have no doubt is in the know. When he says something about the Steelers and he's the source that you cite, I believe it. He did debunk the Chase Young Steelers rumors pretty quickly, and nothing has come about in regard to that, so it makes sense. He also talked about Darnell Washington a little bit, and everybody wants to hear about Darnell all the time, 24/7, 365. Yeah. So make sure you go over and check that podcast with Ray. I agree, another cool one.
And then another one we did, David Todd, just really, really intelligent guy. Just he's like one of those guys where you just kind of sit back and let him give his takes, just because everything that he touched on was just so interesting. He worked for Steelers radio, ESPN radio, so just been around the block. It's always cool to again talk to someone like that.
How often you get to talk to a guy who went to both Harvard and Yale? Are you kidding me? You're in the presence of greatness right there, man.
Yeah,
Harvard and Yale, not just one. What stuck out to me was how high he is on Deontay Johnson this season. He thinks Deontay is going to explode. He thinks he's going to make amends for that 0 touchdowns last year. Talked about how he's going to be Kenny Pickett's favorite target, how hard he's worked this offseason. And so I'm excited to see if that prediction holds true. So that's what David gave us and a lot more. So check out that episode for sure. That was just last week, I think.
Yeah, and here's another David Perellas. And I think that he has the best shot out of a lot of these guys that we had on to make the team. I just think that he just has that dog in him. He's a Fresno State Bulldog, so I guess it makes sense. Not the swagger Jack Georgia, because I know they're the the dogs, but shout out to Fresno State.
Wow, you swagger jacked him right on this show. No, you got that Bulldog in him. I mean, what else can you say?
Yeah.
He does have a good chance to make the team. Like, so often we have these undrafted free agents on and we get to introduce you to them, which is so exciting. Prowlis was so productive, one of the most productive undrafted free agents the Steelers have had in a long time. I think he was, top 10 in the FBS in sacks. And the outside linebacker position is thin, like we talked about. I mean, you bring in a guy like Marcus Golden, who's older, which the Steelers did, kind of shows you that you're just trying to add to that position. He's not going to play forever. Who knows about Alex Highsmith right now? Hopefully he stays around long term, but if they cannot get a long-term deal done with them, it kind of just leaves them with TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, and an older Marcus Golden. You need a guy like David Perellas, who I think is going to make the team. I really do. He's been a preseason standout. You hear it everywhere. We're going to get to watch him, of course, or he's been an OTA standout. We're going to get to watch him in the preseason. I think he's going to be productive, and I'm pretty confident that he's going to make the team, barring an injury or something.
Yeah, and then one other guy, Jordan Bird, he was one of the first guys we had on here. Just he actually just released a book, so
really
shout out to him on that. Yeah, really cool stuff. So yeah, and his speed is just, I mean, like I said, man, Kelvin Austin, watch out, because that man is fast. But just, again, excellent stuff. Like you said it, man, when we have these guys on, it's their platform to tell their story and introduce themselves to Steeler Nation. And it was really cool this season, before the season on Steeler Crazy Podcast to, kind of just, let you guys listen to, their background and their journey. I think that it's amazing. It really is. I just sit back and I'm just like, man, like, how could you not root for any of these guys?
Yeah, you know what? I would love to touch on that towards the end of this show, because anybody that's still tuned in, the word fanboy gets thrown around so much. It's such a funny word to me in Pittsburgh media. And I'll take that all day. Like, we make relationships with these guys, right? Like, we're going to root for them. They're good people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'll tell you when the Steelers suck. I'll do it. If they suck in one particular game, I'm going to say they played like shit today. Here's why.
Yeah.
Here's who need to step up their game. I'll give that objective analysis. But yeah, you're damn right. I'm rooting for a lot of these guys at the end of the day. You know, they're people we build relationships with. You know, when the Steelers do better, our podcast does better. I root for the Pittsburgh Steelers actively to win because that helps us do better and it makes people more interested and it helps the city with better vibes. It makes me happier at the end of the day. So I'm a fan and I am a boy. So I could give two shits, you know, if people in the media want to call us fanboys or call out people who are fanboys left and right. You're damn right I am. I don't care.
I'm going to have to let all the haters know that I'm a fan, man. 2:30.
Fan child.
2:30 a.m. every day, man. I'm gonna be out there. Me and the Steelers running the hills, getting it done. St. Vincent College is coming up soon. And again, we just want to thank you guys for hanging out with us. As always, just go back and check out the podcast that we just talked about at the end of this one. And I'm just going to say it here and maybe end on this, Michael. Mason Rudolph, QB2.
I think a lot of people might have turned off the episode after we went on that tangent. But, hey, man, we're creating some drama somewhere. I love it.
Hey, and we love you guys. Until next time, this has been another episode of Steeler Crazy, the Sick Podcast. Jay York Football, Mic'd Up Sports 1. See you guys soon. Shane?
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.